Welcome to the Voices of a Stranger podcast. Here is your host, Reza Garajadaki.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Voices of a Stranger. I'm super excited because I have my friend Jeremy Elster, who's joining us this morning. Hi, Jeremy. Good
Hi.
morning. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for being here. Jeremy is also a fellow gaucho and also originally from San Diego, so we have a lot in common.
Yeah.
His entire family went to UCSB. His wife's family went to UCSB, and we met on the UCSB Facebook message board when I announced my Voice of a Stranger, and he told me he had an incredible story, which he does. So today, Jeremy's going to talk about his life and surviving cancer, and it is an amazing story. Just a few days ago, Jeremy, I didn't even tell you this, but I found out one of my favorite friends at UCSB, who was a tour guide, just turned 50, suddenly got a heart attack and passed away just a couple days ago. So
wow.
as I was preparing to talk to you this morning, I was thinking about how precious life is and how you came close to losing your life and being told that you won't survive. And here you are today, and how in a matter of seconds, someone who could be totally healthy could drop down and unfortunately pass, or someone deals with cancer for many, many years and then eventually survives. So that's just the essence of how the universe works, and there's nothing we can do about it, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So Jeremy grew up in San Diego, had a great career, went to UCSB, was there for 5 years, and at the age of 48, visited a doctor, was having some health issues, and found out that he might possibly have cancer. So Jeremy, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to pass the baton to you and tell us your story.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Reza. Nice to be here. Thanks so much. Yeah, it's a long, crazy story, and it's one of those things like you were just describing where you just never know. And yeah, one day I went in for a routine colonoscopy, and my doctor told me, hey, he saw something he didn't like, and it kind of just, that was the beginning. That was sort of ground zero for the story and how it progressed. And one thing led to another. I got multiple opinions, did multiple exams, and eventually I was offered, kind of a solution that wasn't really what I was hoping for. It was colorectal cancer. So what they were offering me was, removing my rectum, which would result in having an ostomy bag for the rest of my life. And so that really wasn't something I was prepared to deal with or accept at the time. So I started down kind of a journey of getting multiple opinions and trying to figure out if there are any other options for me. And that ended up taking, close to a year's time by the time I was really gathering all the information and trying to figure things out for myself.
And how was that for you initially to get that, news and your family? Yeah. How did that hit you?
Yeah, it was shocking, when it was like straight out of a movie, right? I was in a room, my parents were there, my wife was there, and in comes the doctor, with the news saying, I think it's cancer. And, at that point, I think it was probably only stage 1. But it was kind of an unconfirmed diagnosis. So like I said, I tried to gather as much information as I possibly could to make the best decision that I could. But ultimately, things started to kind of slip away from me a little bit as I was gathering that information. And then, it got to the point where I really felt like my health was deteriorating and I was kind of in a bad state.
And tell us about your health. How did it deteriorate, and what did you notice about just your mental health?
So my appetite started to really diminish, and I was having trouble eliminating waste without getting too into the weeds on that kind of stuff. And my weight was starting to slip. My energy was down. Like everything was starting to kind of unravel slowly. But then, right around sort of November of 2019 is when things really were getting what seemed like a critical moment, kind of make or break sort of thing. And then I ended up checking myself into the ER. And once there, we did a few more tests, and they wanted to do the same procedure that I was originally offered, almost a year prior, which was to remove my rectum and have a full-time bag for the rest of my life. And I still, I had a whole year to process this reality, even though I didn't really want to accept it. And so there I was in the ER, and they were telling me, it's not looking good. You kind of need to get this operation. And so they finally offered me one final option, which was a temporary ostomy, which I didn't even know was a thing. And so what they did was they told me they could, kind of reroute my whole excretory system into this bag, but just as a temporary option. And then if things were to progress properly and heal up properly, then they can reverse it. So, that was kind of the best option for me at that point. That's kind of what I wanted to do. So we did that. As it turned out, I had some other issues going on unbeknownst to me. I had a huge abscess infection, a 17 centimeter, which is about the size of a volleyball. Yeah, a massive thing. And I had no idea that was even happening. So all in, I ended up spending 23 days in the hospital, which up until that point, I had barely ever been to a hospital. Like, I didn't even really know what the hospital life was all about. So yeah, 23 days dealing with.
You told me you lost weight all the way. Tell us about your weight loss.
Yeah. So my normal weight was around 150 to 155, and by the time I checked into the hospital, I was probably around 135. So I'd lost quite a bit of weight up until that point. And then once I was in the hospital, I couldn't eat or do anything for a couple of weeks, and my weight got down to 112. And so. I mean, it was amazing. That was one of the saddest days of my life at that point, when I realized just how far I had fallen, and then just how, high I had to go back up just to get back to where I was. So, I was on death's door. I was looking it right in the face. Not something that you ever really, think would happen at that point, but it did. And so I had to deal with it. But yeah, I didn't eat anything for 2 weeks, and finally I was able to have some sustenance intravenously, which was kind of interesting. So yeah, I had a bag full of food that was liquid food that was going into my veins. So I started to slowly build my weight back up, and we got the infection under control. But yeah, all in was 23 days. I had to learn how to walk again. I was so weak. I hadn't gotten out of bed for 2 weeks' time. And yeah, I got my weight up to about 122, I think it was, by the time they discharged me from the hospital.
So you were in the hospital 23 days. You got discharged. Obviously, and I know you talk about your career, but you had an amazing career, and you still, So tell us about how, and then you get out of the hospital. How does that transition with your work?
Yeah, sure. So I had taken some time off from work, which I thought was just going to be temporary. And I told them, I've got this situation. I'm not really sure, what it is or how long I'll be gone. But, I had intended on coming back. I had a professional career as a meteorologist for 25 years, which was a great career. It was something I was always interested in when I was a kid. And even at UCSB, I studied atmospheric science and oceanography. And I kind of put that all together into a nice long career of 25 years. And everything was going great, like you said. And so yeah, I had taken a leave of absence for what I thought was just going to be a short while, but as it turned out to be more permanent. So yeah, I basically was relying on family support and disability at the time. So that was kind of helping. I mean, all this was covered by my health insurance. Otherwise, it would have been debilitating financially.
So when you got back, were you under chemotherapy too, or no?
No, I hadn't started any of that yet. So basically, I did the surgery, the life-saving surgery, and I was just kind of recovering, just getting my strength back, getting my weight back up. And that took me a good solid, I'd say 7 or 8 months to get my weight back up. And then I was just walking, that was the only exercise I was really doing for the longest time. Just, like I said, I had to learn how to walk again. And just trying to slowly get my strength back.
How was your mental situation in those 7 or 8 months?
Yeah.
Tell our audience what was going through your.
Yeah. Well, I felt blessed just to be alive. Honestly, like I said, I was looking at the end, and I had a real good look at it. so yeah, I was just happy to be alive. I really started to pay attention to the smaller things in life, just being able to walk again, being able to
Yeah.
go out
Basic.
and spend time with my dog again, and just visit with friends again, and just go out and see the ocean again and smell
Yeah.
flowers again, like all these things that you take for granted on an everyday basis, right?
Totally.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, but I still had this issue hanging over my head. I had a medical situation that wasn't resolved, so that was kind of weighing on me the entire time, and I was still trying to find answers and trying to figure out what to do. And so eventually, yeah, I did go back to the original surgeon that had recommended the original procedure. And so I went and had a chat with him again and said, well, okay, what are my options now? I've survived that emergency situation. I've put my weight back on. What do we do now, kind of thing. And so we did a few more tests, and at that point, they did determine finally that I did have cancer, and at that point, it had progressed to stage 3. So, so there was some penetration into my prostate. There was now, some sort of influence with my bladder. So yeah, so I was kind of in no man's land. I had this, what I thought was just a temporary ostomy. But now, yeah, I had stage 3 colorectal cancer. And so now I had to really deal with it on this sort of next level. So yeah, we're over a year in now. I'd say, a year and a half now since the original sort of, walk down this path. And so yeah, he recommended chemo and radiation. These are things that I never thought I would do. I was a pretty healthy guy for the most part and lived a pretty healthy life. And so the thought of doing chemo and radiation never really crossed my mind as something that I would ever do. But here I was in a situation that I needed to get myself out of. So yeah, I started on the chemo, did 8 rounds of that. So every 2 weeks was another round. So it took me about 4 months to get through all of that.
So tell our listeners and our viewers, for those of us who haven't had chemo,
Yeah.
what does that do to your body
Yeah.
exactly?
Well, I mean, it's pretty crazy. I mean, it's hard to really describe, but I mean, you feel sick. You feel sick all the time. Without getting into too much of the detail, I had, vomiting, diarrhea, had this horrible skin rash, um, no energy, no appetite, all the things. So, it's really hard to think that, this is helping me in any way, because you feel sick all the time. And so, at the end of my 2-week off period, I'd start to feel better again. And then it was time for another round. And so we did that, 8 times, like I said. So then I survived that and took a few weeks off to kind of feel better again. And then it was time for the radiation part of the treatment. And that was, 5 days a week for 6 weeks straight. And that, I didn't feel too terrible from that, but it definitely made me feel fatigued and just kind of like a foggy brain kind of thing. Just kind of like, what am I doing? Where am I? Kind of felt like my memory was kind of lapsing a little bit. So that was 6 weeks of that. And, I made it through that. They actually gave me a little plaque that said, hey, you graduated. So it was kind of like a second graduation. Once was from UCSB, and the second was from this chemo and radiation. So yeah, that whole process took 6 or 7 months of just going through that. And yeah, I did everything that I could to just kind of keep myself sane. Like I said, lots of walks with the dog, just getting fresh air, trying to eat healthy, trying to do everything I could just to stay positive. That's a huge component of this whole thing, is just staying positive. Even when things aren't going well and you're feeling sick, you just have to stay positive and just know that, this is all part of the plan. So yeah, then it became time to talk with my surgeon again. And so I had some success with the therapy up until that point. by that point I had, when I started the chemo, I had several different tumors now, not just one. And some of them showed some good response, and one of them did not. And the one that did not was actually the most crucial one, because that was the one that was kind of penetrating my prostate and up against my bladder. So, when I talked to my surgeon again, he was like, look, there was some good news, some bad news. The good news was there was some, effect, and there's an operation that we can do. The bad news was it was a much bigger operation than we had talked about originally. So, during this whole process, there's lots of ups and downs, lots of news that you just have to process, and not all of it's great news. So you just have to, like I said, you have to stay positive, keep your chin up, keep getting out of bed every day, keep getting after it. This operation that he was proposing was called a total pelvic exoneration, which it's about as crazy as it sounds. And so basically what it is my entire pelvic organ complex was removed.
Wow.
And the reason they recommended this was, in the typical Western system, they basically want to get rid of all of the cancer. They don't want to leave any behind.
Sure.
So he's like, we got to do all this stuff, take all these organs out in order to make sure that they've got all of the cancer out. So I was like, wow, that wasn't really the news I was hoping for, but if this is the only way, then this is the only way. So it took a few months to kind of get my strength back again after the chemo and radiation, and because you really want to be as strong as you can possibly be going into a surgery like this. And yeah, it was a 15-hour procedure, which is just insane. I mean, I still look back on it and think like, wow, what a crazy time that was. And so I had 3 different surgeons: colorectal surgeon, a urology surgeon, and a plastic surgeon. And they all worked together for, like I said, 15 hours.
Wow.
With the surgery. So I had my colon removed, rectum, bladder, prostate, anus, and my seminal vesicles. So yeah, it was insane. And so the procedure was successful. They got clear margins. I didn't have too many side effects. I had a small infection that I dealt with for a short while. But apart from that, everything they said went smoothly. I spent 10 more days in the hospital just recovering. I think I lost another 20 pounds during that whole time. So, my weight had gone down and gone up and back down and back up, back down again. So it was a roller coaster ride this entire time. I literally felt like I was at Magic Mountain on one of those crazy roller coasters, just going up and down and all around. So it was wild. I still look back on it, like I said, and just think like, wow, did I really go through all that? So yeah, here we are. I think we're in sort of later in 2020 now. And mind you, COVID's now happening. So this is another crazy element to the story, is, having to deal with COVID. And every time I went for a procedure or an exam, it was get a COVID test, get a negative COVID test.
Yeah.
And, it was hard to make appointments and scheduling things. And there were all these extra elements of craziness that was happening with the COVID, as I'm sure everyone was dealing with at the same time. So, but yeah, dealing with cancer and COVID was like a double whammy, a double jeopardy, as it were. So that was fun.
Now after the surgery, were you cancer free or still not?
Yeah, they did pronounce me cancer free. The pathology report came back saying that they had gotten clear margins, which they go around all of the tumors, and then they add a certain amount of distance to get the clear margin in case there was like a little bit on the edge kind of thing. So yeah, they were saying clear margins, we got all the cancer. Get some physical therapy and, be on your way, go live your life kind of thing. And I was like, great. I've had enough of the doctors and hospitals and procedures and this and that. So like, I'm good. Like I'll I'll be on my way. Thank you very much. So yeah, that was June of 21. June of 21, where I had the surgery. I did all the chemo and radiation in 2020 into the first part of 21. So yeah, 3 months later after the surgery, and I went in for my sort of first post-operative scan, and I wasn't expecting anything to come up on there, because they were telling me that I'd gotten all the cancer and everything. So the first scan comes back saying that there were some new lesions that showed up on my liver.
Wow.
So that was a little bit of a shock to hear that there was possibly some more cancer going on. So I had a few more tests done, a biopsy, a liver biopsy, and another scan. And they determined that, yeah, the lesions were malignant, and they then referred me to a liver specialist to go over my options. So yeah, I wasn't even fully healed from the surgery at that point. So the last thing I thought I would end up doing, after all the other last things I thought I would do, was to go back and deal with this whole cancer situation again. So yeah, I met with the liver specialist, and he basically told me there's really not a good solution for me. I had 15 metastatic lesions. And the liver is an interesting organ. You can actually clip off portions of the organ of the liver, and it'll grow back. So that was interesting. I didn't ever really contemplate that before, but the fact that I had so many lesions basically meant that there wasn't a good procedure for me, and they didn't want to do chemo or any radiation again, because I had just done all that. And so so they're basically saying, like, well, we don't really have a good option for you. We've done everything we can possibly do at this point. You're too weak for chemo. You're too weak for more radiation. So they basically said, sorry, we can't help you. And, to hear that...
It's a death sentence, basically, right?
Yeah. Yeah, to hear that after all the things that I've gone through was just devastating. I mean, I went through, hell to get to the point where I was at that time. And I didn't think that I was going to have to dive right back into that whole thing again. And the fact that they didn't have any options for me was heartbreaking. I mean, I was already grieving from all the loss.
You've gone through so much.
Yeah. All the loss of organs and all of the, sickness and all the hospital visits. And so, yeah, at that point, I did contemplate giving up, to be perfectly honest. I had gotten to that point that it seemed like there was no hope for me, and my medical team had given up hope for me. So at that point, I was like, well, what else can I do? And luckily for me, I had really good family support. I still do to this day, and they weren't ready to give up on me.
Sure. So
we started researching some alternative therapies, since there was nothing in the medical establishment that was an option for me. So we ended up finding some clinics in Tijuana, Mexico, and had a couple conversations with some of the facilities and doctors in Tijuana. And this one called Oasis of Hope said, hey, yeah, come on down. I think we can help you. And so the very next week, I went down there with my sister and her partner, and yeah, we stayed there for 3 weeks at the hospital and did all these alternative therapies. And they really instilled hope in me. Whereas the typical Western medical system, especially in the cancer world, it's a lot of fear. It's a lot of fear-based stuff. Do this or you'll die, do that or you're going to be in a bad way. So it was really refreshing to have more of a hopeful sort of protocol. And all the doctors were really friendly. They really wanted to see me do well and get better. And so yeah, after 3 weeks of being in Tijuana, I came back home, and there was a home protocol that I did for another 3 months. And at that time I was actually feeling pretty good. I kind of like wrapped my head around the fact that I'd been left for dead and moved on from that, and now I was like finding a new chapter, a new path. And yeah, after 3 months of the home protocol, a few supplements and a couple of medications, I had another scan, and the scan, they couldn't find any lesions at all on my liver. They were all
Unbelievable.
gone.
You know,
And
the
um,
question I have, Jared, did you ever go back to your Western doctors and share? I just want to see the look on the face of those doctors.
I never went back to my surgeons. In fact, to my knowledge, they don't even know that I'm alive. Yeah.
You know,
Um,
the reason I
yeah.
say that is because I worked at the College of Acupuncture in San Diego. I was director
Hmm.
of admissions, and we trained people to do alternative medicine, right? Okay,
Yeah.
and we had students who had been in Western medicine as nurses, and after many years had given up on it and had now embraced this whole idea of Eastern medicine.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah. No.
but one of the things I heard was there was such a negative view by this Western medicine on anything which is not their way of teaching or
Yeah.
medicine, and that your story brings that memory back for me.
Yeah. It's true, and we don't have to get too much in the weeds of
Right.
the standard of care versus alternative care, because
Sure,
they
sure.
really don't blend together at all.
No.
If I were to mention what I did to my surgeon, they'd probably,
Yeah.
they would never have me back in their office again, and that's fine.
Right.
I understand. They've been trained a certain way. That's fine. I understand that. But yeah, in Mexico, they're not beholden to the FDA, and so there's a lot of different therapies that are cutting edge that aren't FDA approved, but are actually helping people. And I'm living proof. I did both sides. I did the Western standard of
Sure.
care,
Yeah.
and then I did the alternative care. So I feel like I can speak to both probably better than most. Um, and so yeah, they saved my life down there. I was really, like I said, I had sort of given up hope in some ways, not entirely, but I just thought I was down on my luck. I was absolutely down on my
Oh
luck,
yeah.
and then over
Oh.
almost 3 years of battling this, and with all the loss of organs and everything,
Well,
and having
it's an incredible story, Jeremy. And I
yeah,
think I've had a couple cancer survivors, but I think for me, as we promote this podcast, hopefully it'll get to people who are in situations where they've been told there's no hope, and just what you said about going to Mexico and doing alternative medicine,
yeah,
and I think for me that is I mean, what you went through was horrific, but here you are, your wife's is with you, you have a beautiful family, and you survived, and you found a way to survive, and you didn't give up.
yeah, yeah. That's it. I mean, you really just have to find a way, and you have to stay positive. You have to stay strong. Like I said, I had nothing but bad news for multiple years in a row, and it can really wear on you. Plus, just all the physical torture. Um, so yeah, you really have to stay strong. I was tapping into strength I didn't even know I had. Um, and obviously, yeah. I mean, there were times like the first ER visit. I was so close to dying. Like, um, it was a miracle that I even survived that. And then I survived all this, the chemo, the radiation, the massive surgery, um, getting more bad news. So yeah, I mean, I never really uh, pictured myself as a survivor. Like I said, I tapped into a strength I didn't even know that I had. And so now I'm thinking, well, there's a reason that I'm still above ground. There's a reason that I'm still here. And so, yeah, my new purpose in life is to try to help people and hopefully provide some inspiration. And just knowing that no matter how bad things get or look, there's always a way. Um, and and yeah, you just never give up. And so yeah, we can get into more of
That's
that if you like.
That's great. Well, this is great. I mean, your story has been amazing. I think our listeners are going to be completely inspired by you, fascinated by you. But I think more importantly, there might be people who will hear this who are in a very dark place themselves, maybe health wise,
No,
and
it's true.
this
Yeah.
could open up their mind. Any last few words for our listeners and our viewers about just your inspiration about life, and like you said, don't take things for granted.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, we didn't touch too much on my ostomies. I have two ostomy bags, which is a challenge in and of itself, and it's a constant reminder of my cancer journey that I went through.
Sure.
So, on some level, it's definitely helped me. I don't have any pain. Everything's working great. I have to, I have some other maintenance stuff. I have to stay hydrated. I have to make sure that I eat properly, and I don't drink. I don't do anything. I really just focus on my health. That's my thing, and being healthy, I feel like is the only way.
And you have a loving wife who's been supportive, and
She's been very supportive, and it's been, it was tough on her, and maybe that could be another podcast for you someday, is interviewing her and what it was like for her on seeing things through her eyes, and my parents, my family as well. That's a whole other side of just, you have to have a great support system. If you don't have that, it really makes it a lot more difficult to go through something like this. So yeah, get all the support you can from wherever you can. And yeah, just be strong. I mean, I'm constantly doing things with these two ostomies that I never really thought for sure that I could do. I mean, I did some research online. I did talk to a few people, and I've seen people doing some cool stuff. But yeah, like my passions are board sports. I do a lot of ocean sports and snow sports. And nobody could really tell me for sure if I'd still be able to do those. And I'm doing them, and I've never been happier.
That's great.
And so I'm hoping to inspire people to do great things. I mean, like I said, I was happy with my career. It was nice being a meteorologist, and it was interesting and rewarding in some ways. But now I'm finding another purpose in life, and I hope to inspire and help people. And I do talk to quite a few people, honestly, like,
that's awesome.
Because, cancer rates are going through the roof. I'm sure everybody's aware of that now. And not just cancer, but other illnesses and diseases and just mental health too. People are struggling with a lot of different things. And yeah, I'm hoping to inspire people and just know, like, you can take control of your life. You can make things better if you're going through a hard time. You just have to really dig down deep and be strong and don't lose hope. I mean, like I said, I did for a while there. I thought, well, wow, what point is there to going on like this? It didn't seem like there was really any point. But now I've found another purpose in life, and my purpose is to try to help people. And I talk to quite a few people, probably one or two people a week that are dealing with cancer and want to know, like, what I did, how I came back from stage 4
awesome.
and near death and all that kind of stuff. And so people are tapping in and wanting to know. And there's no one real secret. It's a combination of a bunch of different things. But you really have to put the work in. You can't just rely on a pill or a surgery or this or that. Sure. You really have to put the work in and really dedicate your life to getting your health back and getting your life back. And that's what I've done to this date. So
very good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jeremy, for your story. I know it's going to inspire many people, and continue to tell your story. Hopefully, via this podcast, more people will hear about it. And if you do want to get a hold of Jeremy, please email me. I have his contact information, and I'm sure you'd be happy to talk to anybody who is dealing with this individually. Jeremy, thanks again. It's always great to have a gaucho on.
Yeah.
And hopefully this message, which I know will resonate with many people. Thanks a lot, Jeremy.
Thanks so much, Reza. Yeah, go Gauchos.
All right, go Gauchos.
Okay. Talk to you.
Thanks for joining us this week. Please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or on your webpage at thevoicesofastranger.com. If you enjoyed the show, please tell a friend and subscribe to the show. Tune in next week for a new guest. Until next time, keep living life with passion and make each day count.